Chapter talks about the world of print media relations, specifically the role of newspapers and the newspaper industry and being a method of public relations practitioners to generate and attract publicity for their organization. Chapter starts off talking about something that I think a lot of people don't realize is that the newspaper industry, despite its challenges out there, and there are challenges left and right looking across the country, major newspapers having to slash budgets, staff being laid off, circulation being down. That's even true here in Fairbanks and down in Anchorage, where the two of Alaska's major newspapers, the Fairbanks Daily News Miner and the Anchorage Daily News, have been affected by the economy and have seen cuts being made to their newsroom as well. So you hear all these reports of problems in the newspaper industry, but what a lot of people don't realize is that for PR people, the newspaper is still alive and well and still has tremendous reach, the ability to reach out to so many people, both in print versions and online versions, that it is an industry you want to be able to work closely with because that positive relationship will be a good one for you and your organization in terms of the ability to word out about what you're doing. One thing the chapter doesn't talk about that seen here within Alaska is that as newspapers have had to make cuts to staff, they still have a newspaper that they have to fill with stories. One way that newspapers can do that is if there are good public relations people out there who are pitching press releases that contain actual news items that would be of interest to the public. The newspapers in some cases will use those press releases to a greater extent than they normally would if they had a reporter to do more detail work on it. Now, writing a well-written press release is kind of an art in itself. It's important to that when doing that, you do have to know what the media wants to receive. And in the later chapters, we'll talk about how to write good press releases. There are some problems that exist out there for print media and I guess media in general, and the relationships between PR versus journalists. Book talks about how newspapers do have and media in general has very low credibility these days because of some less than ethical situations that have occurred in the reporting world. There's kind of a love-hate relationship between media and journalists. Media knows that they do need to rely on PR people to help get the information they need for the stories that they want to cover, and PR people realize that they have to have a positive working relationship with the media that'll help generate the publicity that they want their organization to be generated. What a lot of organizations don't realize once you get beyond the PR shop and kind of climbing up the upper echelon of the organization is that the organization gets upset with reporters who will report unfavorably on a situation related to the organization, and that's the role of the newspaper. The newspapers aren't out there to be a publicity machine for an organization. The newspapers are there to report on the news, whether that be good news or bad news. Your job in the PR world is to respect that relationship, have a helpful, cordial relationship with the media, provide them with answers to the questions that they're looking for. Don't bluff to them, don't lie to them, respect their world, respect the fact that they have deadlines. You put that in place and you're going to find that the good stories are going to come out there because the way reporters work with PR people is if they're calling you, it's for a couple different reasons. One, there is they want you to comment or get the organization to respond to something that they've heard that is happening that usually is probably not tremendously positive, or they're calling you to say, hey, anything going on that would make for a good story. Those are the questions that you want there, and it's all about the relationships. There's a reason why it's called public relations because those relationships are key to having successful outcomes with the media. Page 181 to 184 gives some really great tips for how to deal with the media that you'll want to definitely go over and read on those. Chapter then goes on to talk about the difference between publicity and advertising. And It's a good one to touch upon because it really talks about how much more valuable and less expensive good publicity is than advertising. Now, of course, there's pros and cons with either one. With advertising, you get to control the message, and there's a lot more you're in control of. With publicity, you really don't have that much control at all. You're at the whim of the newspaper, the reporter, and the editor. Again, going back to those relationships, though, you can kind of help steer things the way you would like them to be steered. 185 to 186 talks about the value of publicity, what it means for an organization. 187, page 187 talks about how to pitch publicity. And this is a real good list to go through. Let's say you have your bosses saying, we need to get this story, in the Newsminer or on Channel 11 News. And your job is, how are we going to get the media to buy in on that? So this part of the book, this checklist talks about what are the ways to pitch a story to a reporter or to a news organization? How do they like to receive information, phone call versus electronic? What type of information, etc. So this is probably the handiest list, I think, that's in this particular chapter. The one thing that a lot of organizations fail to do, or at least do well, is measuring publicity. It's good to do because most places are about outcomes. They want to know, okay, we did this, what did this result in for us? So the book talks about some tools that are out there that will allow you to measure the publicity, see how effective your the outcome was with with putting publicity in the local newspaper. Also, a good section from this chapter, because I think this is really a very invaluable chapter. It's a subject a little bit biased because it's a subject that I'm quite familiar with and enjoy dealing with. But I think it just gives some great tips here, because whether you're going to PR or not, just as Joe or Susie citizen, there's a chance that someday you might be called by a reporter to ask questions, and knowing how to work with reporters and just knowing the world of the news organization. I think it's good for us. It's good for us to know, because it's not a world that is well understood and is gets a real bad rap sometimes. So hopefully one of the things that will come out of this chapter is just a better understanding of that complex world. But handling print interviews, again, a good checklist there. How do you conduct yourself in an interview? Print interviews are pretty mild for the most part as far as interviews go. They're usually over the phone. And so you can have notes in front of you. You've got the ability to get back to the reporter easier. The challenging interviews, and I've done quite a few of these myself and always looking to practice and get better, are the television interviews. And that'll be talked about, I think, in the next chapter. Finally, the chapter wraps up with talking about press conferences. Not widely used in PR that much anymore, at least here in Fairbanks. Rare is it that we have some item that is so important that we need to call a press conference for. Well, one is because we don't have that big of a media market, so the media outlets that would come to a press conference are fairly limited to the Newsminer, Channel 11, Channel 13, KUAC Radio, and maybe KATN Channel 2. So usually don't need a press conference. Usually it's just about working one-on-one with those different organizations. So that's the chapter in a nutshell, print media relations. Hope you got some good information out of it. And coming ahead in more chapters, we'll be talking about dealing with the world of electronic media and all the fun and games that entails. All right, thank you.